devotees, a warm welcome to our Sunday program at our Krishna temple in Zurich. Now we are going to continue with our Sunday program, which is as follows. Now we are going to have a talk on our Krishna conscious topic till 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock there will be a vegetarian feast. 6:15 there will be a guided mantra meditation. At 7 o'clock a temple ceremony. And from 8 o'clock onwards we will have more mantra meditation in the form of kirtan. And for today's talk, we are very happy to invite here His Grace Divya-simha Prabhu. Please welcome him with a big Hari Bol. I think some of you might still remember him. He joined this temple and the Krishna consciousness movement in 2006 and has lived as a monk, especially here in this temple, for over 10 years. Served in very different departments as a book distributor, as a temple commander, a vice president, and in this way sharing Krishna consciousness with everyone he's meeting. Currently he is now living in Brazil with his wife and working there. He has an MBA in conscious leadership, and his main area currently is now to kind of bring our Krishna conscious spiritual knowledge and wisdom, to combine it with the working with the corporate world, and to see how we can bring that knowledge to get better leaders and conscious leaders in this world. And today he's going to talk on the topic of emotional intelligence in the Bhagavad-gita, and we kindly invite you to take a seat. And bevor wir dann weiterfahren, noch eine Frage: Braucht jemand eine Übersetzung ins Deutsche? So. Gibt es jemand weiteres, der eine Übersetzung bräuchte? Diana, würdest du das übersetzen? Dann Adi Purusha Prabhu wird dann die Übersetzung ins Deutsche geben, vielleicht in der Ecke dort hinten. Und I also request you to move a little forward. So, and then I wish you a very happy Sunday. Hare Krishna.
So, Hare Krishna, warm welcome also from my side. Is anyone here for the first time today? Oh, so many. Wonderful, thank you for coming, all of you, especially those who come for the first time today. I'm very happy to be back in Zurich since quite some time, and happy to see the temple so enlivened. So yeah, let's just chant a little bit more to get deeper into the meditation. And then we're going to talk on the topic of emotional intelligence in the Bhagavad-gita, or how emotions are connected with our spiritual development. And as you're already here, can you bring me a Bhagavad-gita, please, in English? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranchana. Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranchana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranchana. Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranchana. Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranchana. Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Shri Radha Madhava ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanandi Hariva. So thank you for chanting so enthusiastically.
Thank you.
Before we're gonna begin the talk, we will offer some prayers just to increase the auspiciousness still a little bit more. If you know the prayers, please chant together with me. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Si Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyade Shatadine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Now, I'm not fully aware if there is somewhere a translation going on, either to German, to Russian, to what else? There's a German translation.
Wir auf Deutsch. Wenn jemand kein Englisch versteht, könnte gerne hierher kommen.
Okay. So everyone is satisfied with their translations?
There's nobody who's translating into Russian.
Oh. Anyone here speaks English and Russian and would like to translate? He hears with a heart. So before we're gonna start reading from the Bhagavad-gita as it is, let's just connect quickly with the topic of today, which is emotional intelligence in the Bhagavad-gita. I guess all of you had situations in the past or just recently where you acted in a certain way and later you thought, why did I act like this? I think it's very common, like with us human beings, that we behave sometimes in strange ways and only later we realize, actually, this was not in my best interest. Do you share the same feelings with me? Good. That's good, because that's important that we recognize. There's some research which says that if you ask people if they are self-aware, which means if they know themselves, what is going on in their inner lives, how they are perceived by other people, then 95% going to raise their hands and say, yes, I'm a very self-aware person. But then if we dig deeper, doing some assessments, then maybe 10 to 15% of them are really self-aware. Yeah. Which means self-awareness is something very rare in this world. And self-awareness is like the foundation when we speak about emotional intelligence. Now, I have no doubt that here today we have the 10 to 15% assembled. Because that you seek a spiritual path and that you spend a Sunday afternoon in such a way, it shows that you are on the stage of emotional intelligence and self-awareness. The Bhagavad-gita is very strongly connected with emotional intelligence. Maybe it's the first documentation of the topic of emotional intelligence at all. Because within the Bhagavad-gita we have the history or pastime of Arjuna being instructed by Krishna. Now, for those of you who have not heard about Arjuna yet, Arjuna, he is an amazing warrior, maybe the greatest warrior of all times. And he was standing on the battlefield fighting the battle of his life. But suddenly he was overcome by weakness. He wanted to leave the battlefield. And he showed all symptoms of stress, like perspiring and shaking. His bow was gliding out of his hand, and he was completely frozen. Fight, flight, freeze. You've heard about it before? So he had a stress response. And Krishna, he gave him counsel to overcome his situation and to be reinstated in his strengths, in his position as a warrior, and to fight that battle which was supposed to be fought under Krishna's arrangement. So therefore the Bhagavad-gita is a book of transformation. How to rise in our emotional state from lower emotions to higher emotions, ultimately to the spiritual platform. It's about transcendence and transformation. Now the verse I choose for today is from the 3rd chapter, which is entitled Karma Yoga, and it's text 34. What we hear in this verse is like how emotions develop, and Srila Prabhupada in his purport, he gives a kind of outline how to develop emotional intelligence. So this is just one pick of the Bhagavad-gita. If you would study the book as a complete, you will find many more descriptions, instructions, lessons, how to become more emotionally intelligent, to become more aware of one's emotion. So let's read the text for today. And if you know the mantra, which is very simple, it's Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. You can just repeat after me 3 times. Om Namo Bhagavate. So repeat means I chant first and you chant after. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 So we're going to read the Sanskrit and then go to the translation and purport to this verse. Indriya sandriya syate ragatve shau vyavastitau. Tayona vashamagachet tauyasya paripantinau. Translation. There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. I will read just a section of the purport, which is directly related with our topic of today. And for the translation, maybe you can just hear and translate, and you don't have to search. So Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, the sense enjoyment spirit has been current a very long time, owing to material association. Therefore, in spite of regulated sense enjoyment, there is every chance of falling down, Therefore, any attachment for regulated sense enjoyment must also be avoided by all means. But attachment to Krishna consciousness, or acting always in the loving service of Krishna, detaches one from all kinds of sensory activities. Therefore, no one should try to be detached from Krishna consciousness at any stage of life. The whole purpose of detachment from all kinds of sense attachment is ultimately to become situated on the platform of Krishna consciousness. So the verse itself speaks about how emotions are developed. I just repeat that part. There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. So attachment and aversion is what we experience in relation with emotions, and we will particularly focus on this topic today. And in his purport, Srila Prabhupada, he gives two kind of remedies or solutions. The first one is to follow rules and regulations, but already here he makes the point that that's not the ultimate goal. That's okay for the beginning, just to balance things again. But then the ultimate solution is Krishna consciousness, to develop our relationship and love for Krishna. And this we will explore a little bit deeper today. Is this a good idea?
Yes.
Are you with me? Thank you. So emotional intelligence, I think it's like a common word which is well known today in different areas of life. Who of you have heard about emotional intelligence before? Most of us, huh? Okay. Let's just have a quick review how this topic became so prominent. And the first time emotional intelligence was mentioned in academic literature was in the 1960s. But the person who made it really famous was a gentleman called Daniel Goleman. Anyone has read one or any of his books? Yeah, the book Emotional Intelligence, which was published in 1995, became like a bestseller, and since then it was like a buzzword, emotional intelligence. As Rasa Shaya Ramdas Prabhu mentioned before, I'm working in the corporate sector, and there it's something which is mandatory nowadays if you seek for qualified workforce. Now, Daniel Goleman, he's not the originator of the topic, but he brought it into the public. And what is interesting, so he picked up on that research which was already existing, but that moment which was the turning point for him was when he went as a young PhD student, he was studying at Harvard, he went to India. And in India he met his guru, his spiritual master. And he was so impressed by that kind of lifestyle or that culture which he saw in India. This was India in the 1970s, okay? India in 2024 is something quite different. But he was impressed by that kind of peacefulness, that kind of balance which people showed in their day-to-day life. Yeah. So coming back to Harvard, he brought that idea, yes, I want to go deeper into the topic of emotional intelligence. And when he was searching for a professor to accompany his studies, everyone rejected him. They told him this is going to be the end of your career. So luckily there was one professor who saw some hope and developed the topic deeper with him. And emotional intelligence consists of 4 domains. 2 of those are intrapersonal, related with ourselves, which are self-awareness and self-management. And the other 2 are interpersonal, related with others. And they're in the same category, social awareness, and which is like empathy, and relationship management, to act on that which we in Krishna consciousness would say compassion. Expressed in action, in thoughts, in words, communication. Now there's some interesting statistics on emotional intelligence. They say within top performers, it may be in sports, it may be in the professional world, it may be in Krishna consciousness. Amongst top performers, 80 to 90% of their skills or qualities are related with emotional intelligence. And in general, only around 20% of IQ are like relevant to be qualified for a certain kind of field of activity. Like if you look globally, the worldwide population, there's some statistics, we don't know how accurate they are, but they say around 1/3 of the population actually has developed emotional intelligence. And that's already quite astonishing if we heard before that only 10 to 15% of those who think they are self-aware actually are. So I think emotional intelligence is on the rise. And today we want to connect it with our spiritual practice to make it relevant in that context too, because we find a lot of literature about how to apply it at a job, in relationships. So here we want to speak about the ultimate relationship with God and His devotees. Now, ultimately, emotional intelligence is relevant for all areas of life. If you want to be successful in anything in life, you need emotional intelligence. First, you have to understand yourself, and then you have to understand others. Because success depends on communication, how well you're getting along with other people. Yeah. There's a saying, if you climb a mountain alone, then certainly that mountain was not very high. Because if you want to climb a high mountain, you need a team. You need those who have been there before, who are experienced. You'd have to carry a lot of material, and you cannot do that alone. So if you want to go to the top, then we have to learn how to cooperate. Now, this is what we know so far about the history of emotional intelligence. But the real history is different. The real history goes back to creation of this material universe. Because the way how we are created, we are emotional beings. We are driven by emotions. Our brain is designed to function emotionally. So therefore, the original documented dialogue about emotional intelligence is here in the Bhagavad-gita. So therefore, the wise person gets into that to get a deeper understanding. Because in general, material science is always a little bit behind. Science is a process of discovery. So within the Vedas, we find a lot of similarities what science is discovering nowadays. We can go back to the origin and get confirmation from the scientific world. But usually we can find much more within the Vedic scriptures. Now, what's the correlation between emotional development and spiritual development? Spiritual development is about consciousness. This is the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. We want to become conscious of Krishna. This includes to be conscious of ourselves. This includes to become conscious of others. Now, if it's okay for you, usually we have questions at the end, but if it's something which is important for the further understanding, we can anytime make a break. What do you think? For now or for later? Perfect, thank you. So the correlation between emotions and consciousness. Consider like a scale of emotions. There may be emotions on the bottom which we say these are negative emotions. Maybe society put some kind of stigmas on emotions. Some emotions we don't speak about. Yeah. But emotions are real because emotions are connected with our needs. So there's a difference between experiencing emotion and expressing an emotion. Experience is real. Sometimes the behavior which we show by expressing emotions, this could be improved. But the emotion is real and should be acknowledged and accepted. So therefore when we say negative emotions, it doesn't mean we have to suppress those. Like sadness, grief, anger. No one says they should not be experienced and lived. It's important to be a complete person. But they can be kind of stumbling blocks on the spiritual path. Because if we carry that negativity all the time with us and into relationships, then maybe the deeper meaning or the ultimate purpose cannot develop. Not I would say, but we shift in the range when we come to the level of gratitude. There's a shift into positive emotions. And this goes further and further, peacefulness, love, compassion. So we can see on our spiritual path, in our spiritual development, how emotions are playing a very crucial role. Gradually we want to shift into more positive emotions because they are more connected with the spiritual dimension. I'm not going too deep into this topic because this would maybe be a whole class in itself and time is limited here. Yeah. But ultimately what we want to develop are spiritual emotions. And not just for ourselves, but we want to understand Krishna. How to please Krishna the best way. What are the emotions which Krishna is seeking himself? And I give already a hint, there's one devotee who is expert in that. And her name is Radharani. She understood Krishna's heart better than Krishna himself. And then Krishna made some kind of arrangements to get some understanding of that too. And he appeared as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when we want to learn about emotional intelligence, then Srimati Radharani, she's a good reference because she brought it to perfection. Yeah? So we want to understand our own emotions, we want to come to a spiritual level of emotions, and ultimately we want to understand Krishna's heart, which emotions are in Krishna's heart, so that we can please him the best. That's the goal. But there may be something in between, these stumbling blocks, as Srila Prabhupada described them here, the purport. So the problem is, as it said here, raga and dvesha, attachment and aversion. When we come into this world, we carry some kind of luggage with us, some baggage. That's called karma. And due to our activities in the past, we have a lot of impressions in our consciousness. And when we appear again in this world, like taking birth, then we're carrying all that stuff with us. Which means when we come into this world, we are already programmed. You have a program within you. You function in a certain way, and we are all functioning differently. Therefore, it's sometimes so difficult to understand each other. It's very helpful if you make notes, but then you cannot read them. What to do? You're such a nice and attentive audience, so this is all spontaneous today. So, raga and dvesha, attachment and aversion. This is our programming. And according to this, we see and interact with the world. We say it's a problem because, as we said in the beginning, sometimes we act in strange ways, which we later regret. Yeah? We human beings, we can have really some strange tendencies. Yeah? I remember when I was a little boy, I was smelling alcohol. I was 6-7 years old. So some attachment from the past maybe, huh? Just smelling. But I felt, my God, that's so horrible. How can these adults drink alcohol? Yeah. And then I had to make an experience and drink one time alcohol and get so drunk that I was so suffering that I said, no, I never do that again. So we have strange habits, and sometimes we have to get to experience again to change our habits. Smoking is maybe another thing. I mean, to take some smoke into your body, I don't know if this is really pleasant. But some consider it as enjoyment, as happiness, as whatever we may call it. So, due to our attachments, we behave and act in a certain way, which can be favorable or unfavorable. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he gives two kind of processes or solutions how to bring that in balance again. And the first one, he said, we should follow rules and regulations. So why? Because they give us some kind of guidelines, how to behave in a proper way, like how to balance our bad habits, to come just to a normal state again. Now, with rules and regulations, he makes the point here, it's good to follow them, but there is a point where maybe they become an obstacle too. Therefore, it's said, learn the rules and regulations that you know when and how to break them. So we don't want to get stuck. We have to start somewhere, but at one point we have to come to the next level also. We follow rules and regulations, and even if we come to the next level, you may still follow them, but with a different kind of attitude. It's more spontaneous, it's more natural, not by force. Yeah. Now, before we go to the second solution, let's have a quick, let's go a little bit deeper into these emotions, which are like, sometimes it feels like they're controlling us. And often things, they're starting as a thought. Just have a thought. And with our thinking, there is already some kind of emotional experience connected. Because emotions usually we experience in the body. So a thought has already that kind of power to give you some physical sensation. You can feel that already. Now, let's stick for the moment with the negative emotions. Let's use an example, which is maybe very common, which is anger. Yeah? We all have a tendency to become angry for different reasons. Now, what happens when we become angry? We don't want to become angry. Therefore, it's a kind of aversion. An aversion is something which gives us stress, which means our body releases cortisol. Out of the stress response, we have some changes in the body. Now, imagine that you regularly experience a certain situation which makes you angry, repeatedly. It becomes something which is constant, which is almost like normal in your life. Many people experience this when they go to work, because there may be some conflicts or they just don't like what they're doing. So it's a constant stress experience. And because the body releases this kind of hormones, at one point the body becomes addicted to these hormones. And when you don't experience them, your body tells you something is wrong here. Yeah? Because what we have developed is a certain kind of mood. You know these moody people? They are always like this. The place where we're living, there are a lot of cats. Anyone here likes cats? So how many cats do you have at home? 2. We have 30. They're not ours, don't worry. It's a big house with a lot of land, and the owners of the house, they have like a cat Airbnb. So all the cats from the neighborhood, they're welcome anytime. And they know where they get some food and some comfort. Now, with these cats, I observed one thing. Because they have all a certain mood. There's one cat who has a lot of anxiety, who was abused in the past. When this cat sees a human being, he just runs away. There's another cat which is very needy. Whenever he sees a human being, he comes immediately and he wants to have some attention. There's another cat, she is depressed. She's sitting all the time at one place and is crying. Then we have a gay couple, and we have It's a very multicolored family, cat family. So, but what I observed in these cats for living there since around 6 months, that they stay all the time in the same mood. They don't have a capacity to change their situation. Now, we human beings, we have a kind of capacity to change. We're coming back to that. But this just connected with mood. So if we are repeatedly in a similar situation, then it becomes a kind of mood. Now, and gradually this becomes our state of being. A person who has that anger inside doesn't need a trigger from outside. Just a slight provocation and the volcano erupts. Because it's inside. And outside there may be a stimulation, but the problem is inside the anger. It's not the other person who made something stupid maybe. But there could be different kind of reactions. But why one reacts in anger? Because it's inside. Now, our brain is an emotional brain. As we said, we are created as emotional beings. So therefore, whatever kind of experience we're making, we first interpret it in an emotional way. Does it make me happy? Does it make me sad? Do I have some attachment or aversion to it? That's our initial response. So in science they call this the limbic brain, or the reptile brain, the animal brain. Because animals, they cannot control, cannot change their emotions. Just experience. But we human beings, we have some more instances there under this toupee. There's not much left. We have different kind of facilities. We have a rational brain. Our cortex, prefrontal cortex, has the ability to interpret an emotion and to make a rational kind of decision out of that. It's our cognitive facility. You can be more analytic and then decide how we want to respond. Now these two parts of our brain, they're connected. They are like electricity is going through there, and there's communication. But it's something which we have to develop, because as we said, we are born with our program. Now, as human beings, we have the possibility to rise our consciousness, to make a change, to have kind of different experiences. So this whole process of emotional intelligence is about to have different experiences, to bring your life more into a positive state of being, so that ultimately you can attain self-realization. Now let's connect this back to the Bhagavad-gita and our Krishna conscious philosophy. I just read 2 verses from the end of this chapter, text 42 and 43. And there Krishna, he speaks about a hierarchy, how we are built in a structured way and how like each instance have control over the other. So listen attentively. He says, the working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. So the hierarchy, Krishna, he speaks, they are the senses which are connected with the body. To the senses we experience the world, the sense objects. Whatever we experience, the mind makes some interpretation. Says, like it or I don't like it. Attachment or aversion. Then the intelligence is higher than the mind and may tell you, this is good for you, this is not so good for you. So be wise in your decision. And above the intelligence there is the soul. And ultimately all our desires, they come from the soul, because the soul is the living force, the consciousness within us. Now we got that a little bit wrong, because how it works for me and maybe most of us, that the senses see something nice and tell the mind, this is what we want. And the mind then tells the intelligence, let's make some arrangements. Yeah? And the soul is just thinking, oh my God, not again. Yeah. So the way how Krishna designed us is that we can make use of our higher intelligence. Let's read the text 43. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So now we come to the spiritual solution. That's what I said before. Like science made great accomplishments when we speak about emotional intelligence, but now we want to have another spiritual perspective. And in the beginning we said we have one solution in the Bhagavad-gita is to follow rules and regulations, which will support us up to a certain point. But then we have to rise in consciousness to come to a spiritual solution. And that spiritual solution is Krishna consciousness. Maybe I can get some, because these are all important things which I noted down there to give you the value which was promised today in this lecture. Okay, that's important. So, the spiritual solution. We said the problem is our attachment and aversion, but that's not the real problem. The real problem is much deeper. The real problem is connected with our identity. We have in Sanskrit, we have the word ahankara, which means the false ego or false identification. We, as eternal spiritual souls, coming into this material world, we needed some kind of coverings to function here properly. Therefore we got a body, a mind, intelligence, and this false ego on the top, which keeps us in this kind of illusion that we are this body and this mind. Now, as we said, desires, they come from the soul. But when we have this wrong identification, then our desires, they're just not pure anymore. We're not seeking for self-realization, we're seeking for sense enjoyment. Everything which is immediately available and gives us some pleasure, this is what we're looking for. Have you heard about the marshmallow test? Yes. Wonderful, huh? How they torture these kids. Anyone has not heard about the marshmallow test? Just go to YouTube and search for marshmallow test. You should see the video and these faces of these kids. So just in a nutshell, what they did. This was in the 1960s or 70s in Stanford, done for the first time. They wanted to see how to say, the difference between short-term gratification and long-term perspective, what kind of influence it has on our development. So the test was very simple, the experiment. Some kids, average age was 4 years. They were brought into a room. The room was completely empty. There was just a table and a chair. Then they brought a plate with a marshmallow to these kids. There was one kid at a time. And they told them, you can have this marshmallow right now. And everyone knows what is a marshmallow, huh? Yes. Some sweet. Or you wait for, they didn't say the exact time. And when I come back, I will give you 2. So the challenge was to control this urge to immediately eat this marshmallow. And the reward would be to get a second one. Now, just imagine, how old are you, little girl? Princess. How old are you? Oh, princess, now she heard. She's 4 years old. Just imagine sitting her in front of a table with a marshmallow on the plate and someone tells her, you can eat it or you can wait and you will get 2. So these kids were really tortured. Yeah. Now, interestingly, what they found out, they were observing these kids, and 10 years later, they did a follow-up research, those who could resist this urge to take the marshmallow immediately, they became much more successful in their career in the school, at work later. And we have this concept too in our Vedic understanding. It's called shreyas and prayas. There's immediate gratification, or you have a long-term perspective, which will give you a much higher reward. So, what we have to change, we spoke about ahankara, our identity. To make that switch to come to our proper understanding of being eternal spiritual soul and not this body, which is theoretically very easy to understand. In practice it may take some time, but this is where we have to come to, and therefore we have a process which assists us in this. But what is connected with our identity is, where do we seek happiness? If we identify as a body and a mind, then yeah, we're looking for the short-term happiness. But if you identify as a soul, then we know I have a much higher goal, and I'm ready to take some austerities to achieve my higher goal. Because if we are honest, how much happiness is in something temporary? Not much, because it has a beginning and an end. But if you can achieve something through some kind of austerity or practice which is of eternal value, so let's go for that. Makes sense? Are you in? Now, to make this more practical in our last minutes, because in Krishna consciousness everything sounds so theoretical, isn't it? A lot of philosophy, and so how do we do this practical? When we change identity, we may have different kind of perspectives which we take. We said we step out from our immediate gratification, which is usually a symptom of being selfish, to having a long-term perspective where we can practice some detachment. Yeah? It's not about me anymore. It's about putting others into the center of my lives and ultimately put Krishna into the center of our lives. And therefore, how do we make the connection over here? We have the principle of seva. Seva means service. So service is something which we do for others. It's not about our immediate happiness anymore. It's how to please the other person. Now, here is something mystical. Because usually what we do for others gives us more happiness than what we do for ourselves. Now, just imagine if you would do more for the pleasure of others. How would your life change? What kind of experiences would you have? Because as we said, emotions are strongly connected with our spiritual development and our consciousness. So we want to be happy, we want to be fulfilled, we want to be positive, we want to be inspired, enthusiastic, have strong determination and commitment. For this we have to be in positive emotions. And these emotions come to the spirit of service, because we're taking ourselves out of the center. It's about the well-being and happiness of others. And I said in the beginning, our role model is Srimati Radharani, because she has perfected that kind of spirit of seva. She is in a constant meditation how to please Krishna. And she's on the topmost level of spiritual emotions. She's the embodiment of compassion. And this is where we have to come to when we speak about these different domains of emotional intelligence. Yeah, we should resolve the intrapersonal domain to become self-aware and manage ourselves properly. But then it's about connection, it's about relationships. So this is what we learn if we take to a spiritual path and take that principle of seva serious. Then we develop a different emotional state. And here's now the important thing. Because according to the state of our consciousness, we take birth again in the next life. So we take that kind of subtle body with us into a next body. That can be a body here in this material universe, or maybe we just jump right to the spiritual world, if we have developed a proper consciousness. So there, you see there's a very strong correlation between emotions and our spiritual development, and ultimately how we express our love and devotion to Krishna. Let's close here. Even the topic is very vast and we could spend another hour here, but that would not be fair because soon there's prasadam. Maybe you have some questions. We have a few minutes left, or some comments. I see we have many devotees here who are also working in such kind of fields. If you would like to share something, please. You're the first one because you have the joker.
My first question is Krishna consciousness, is it universal? It's for every devotee, is Krishna consciousness universal?
You're speaking about devotees. Would you like to define this term devotee a little bit more for me?
Like everyone who is in the service of this Krishna's consciousness.
Okay. I speak even more general about it. Because Krishna consciousness is something universal. Yeah? Krishna consciousness is not a religion. We have kind of expressions which are religious. But the essence of Krishna consciousness is not religion. The essence of Krishna consciousness is the expression of our love for God. Yeah? So this is connected with the soul. And I have never seen a Christian soul, a Hindu soul, a Muslim soul. I haven't seen that so far. I only saw, actually, to see souls, that's a little bit, I don't see your soul, to be honest. But I know that you are all souls. So therefore, in that connection, I speak. And Krishna consciousness is universal. It's beyond any designations. And we can say it's the natural spirit of the soul, of the being. You had a second question?
My second question is the soul identity, how to find the soul identity, just if you chanting Hare Krishna, or how can you find your soul identity just to be Krishna conscious?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So the nature of the soul is to be active, which means if you try to understand the soul theoretically, it can take a long time. Yeah. This expression of seva or service, which we said, brings you to the closest experience of the soul. The chanting connects you again with your essence as a soul, and the chanting will further develop your inspiration for service. Yeah. But ultimately, it's about getting into action. Therefore, this process of Krishna consciousness or Bhakti Yoga is called devotional service. Yeah? It's activity expressed in devotion for Krishna and his devotees. Thank you. Yes?
You talked about ahankar. How a normal human being who is not at that level can give up this ahankar or the ego, which is doomed to destruction in the self as well as the outer, and especially in the management level.
So it's not possible to give up your false identification. Yeah? Because we need some kind of identification to act in this world. But the process of transformation connects you again with your essence. Yeah. Beautiful. So it's about reconnecting. Yeah? If you give up your false identification, how are you going to continue to exist? We need some kind of identification to function in this world. But the process of transformation brings you gradually to your real identification. So ego is not meant to be given up, it's meant to be purified, transformed. And this is the process of Krishna consciousness, to bring you closer to your real identity. And in the management world, we can speak at Prashanam. Okay? So it's 5 o'clock. I would really like to continue our discussion, but we should respect the program. This gentleman before, he was very firm in his announcement what's happening today, so let's stick to the schedule. And thank you very much for your attention, for coming today. I hope you're going to have a wonderful day at the Sunday Feast program, and please come again, bring your friends. It's a great pleasure to have your association. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Divya-simha Prabhu ki jai. Hare Krishna. Bon appetit.
I haven't actually eaten since yesterday. I missed breakfast and I missed the first meal. Okay, now you should. Sorry.
Das hat mir mega, ich weiss nicht, ob es dir aufgefallen ist, weil das so gut mit unerwarteten Situationen das Natascha das Mädchen läuft dabei, Prinzessin hat sich gehört, oder alle lachen. Er kann so gut mit unerwarteten Sachen umgehen. Ja, das ist das, ich glaube, das ist das kennst du. Der, der zwar angestellt das so liebevoll mitdenkt. Okay? Ja, so schön ist es. Zürich. Ja. Es geht momentan recht um vom Arbeiten. Also wir haben es eben so geregelt, weil wir von der Reise retour sind. Und ich habe gesagt, John, es gibt Gewinn, dass du nicht musst arbeiten. Das ist auch mein Wunsch. Ich sehe es halt so, dass die Frau eigentlich nicht arbeiten muss. Sie kann, wenn sie will, aber sie muss nicht. Weil, das kennst du wahrscheinlich auch von anderen Leuten. Für mich ist es halt auch wichtig, so eine Rollenverteilung zu haben. Ich will die Frau nicht unterdrücken oder so, also sie kann machen, was sie will. Aber ich bin der Meinung, ich bin gemacht, zum halt leisten. Es geht auch, oder? Das habe ich ihr so angeboten und dann hat sie das dann angenommen. Und hat auch gleichzeitig die Möglichkeit gekriegt, in der Pole Fitness, wo sie Trainerin war. Und sie unterstützt nimmt, dass sie dort als erste Angestellte einsteigen zu 35%. Das ist natürlich mega cool. So, also sie kann wirklich ihr Hobby jetzt ins Bett zu Beruf machen. Sie arbeitet nur 100%. Sie macht halt vieles Kunst. Aber es schwappt eben ein bisschen über momentan, weil sie geht dort in recht auf. Sie hinterlässt so, oder sie gibt so weh mir das Gefühl, dass sie am liebsten 150% will, wenn sie dort arbeitet. Ja, aber irgendwie beißt sich das jetzt ein bisschen mit dem Grundgedanken. Weißt, weil ich so ein bisschen der Auffassung bin, hey, du musst nicht so viel arbeiten und weißt, mach einfach das, was du gerne machst. Und sie geht jetzt voll auf in dem.
Sie ist auf der aber hast du weißt du, was da auch jetzt ein Lesen von mir. Das ist verrückt, dass da alles
ja, wahrscheinlich wird das auch ein Prozess sein. Jetzt hat sie ja wirklich eine Kinderbeziehung gehabt. Dann hat sie das aufgebaut und sind wir reisen, ist sie Rettung gekommen. Jetzt kann sie quasi ihr Hobby zum Beruf machen.